Coming up on the Men at the Movies podcast, we get you excited about football with Best of Times. We see two ways we frequently get trapped. We are either like Jack, constantly replaying our worst mistakes and identifying with them, or we're like Reno, feeling like our best days are behind us and identified by a greatness we can no longer achieve. We find ourselves stuck because living a broken life is easier than fixing it. But God can't move a parked car and won't fill a net that we don't cast. We've got to wake up, break out of our lethargy, and follow where God leads. Join us as we discover God's truth in this movie.
The movies and stories we love are gateways to see ourselves and God in new ways.
Every great story borrows its power from a larger story, the story that's written on our hearts and woven into the fabric of our very being.
Hello and welcome to the Men at the Movies podcast. My name is Paul McDonald, and joining me is Britt Mooney. Britt, are you ready for some football?
I'm ready, man. This is our obligatory football movie in the fall, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be airing. We'll be airing mid-October. So football
Perfect.
season. Weather's going to be nice and crisp. No more, hopefully, no more 90-degree days. And we'll be enjoying some fires and some s'mores and hot cocoa and changing colored leaves and all the good stuff that we love about the fall. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. It's been a good week. Been busy, but had some good conversations and good connections over the last week or two. So God's moving, man. So it's been good. How about you?
Awesome. Well, before I answer that, I want to ask you the question, because you said it's been a good week. So what is, and then you talked about the conversation and how God's moving. So I'm sure this somehow leads into our movie. I just don't know how
I think
yet.
it will.
So how do you determine like a good week? When you say, oh, I've had a good week, what makes it good versus good? What makes it good? What makes it good versus, less good?
I mean, ultimately, a good week is kind of a combination of I feel as if I was productive in the things that God wanted me to do, that I had disciplined myself, that I applied myself. I didn't slack off in the things that I felt God wanted me to do. I've been spending some extra time in the prayer room at our church. So the church that I'm going to now is sort of a unique fellowship in that they have 24/7 prayer and worship. They have, it's always going on, and that's part of their commitment. So they very committed to prayer. And so I've been spending some extra time with some other men, praying for the defeat of our spiritual enemies and to be the kind of men that our church and for our church to have the kind of men we need to lead our families and to lead the church into whatever God has for us next. Because a lot of times we think we're waiting on God, but a lot of times God's waiting on us to be the kind of people he can trust with the amazing blessing he has. And which is why we go on heroes' journeys. That's why that's the whole point. So that's been happening. I feel like I've got a lot of revelation and things, vision and stuff from the prayer times, some great times of just connecting with people at church and lunches with friends and connecting times with my wife. It's all about giving myself to the process. I've gotten to the point in my life where it's not really about the achievement of a single goal as much as it is, was I committed to the process? Because Jesus didn't say, read this book and then you'll become fishers of men. He said, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. In other words, they just had to be committed to the following and he would do the making. And so I've gotten to that point in my life as a writer, as a husband, as a father. As a child of God, if I'm committed to the process, then good things happen. blessings happen. And so for me, it's that combination of, was I intentional about connecting with my kids? Was I intentional about connecting with my wife? Was I intentional about the responsibilities and the influence that God has given me? So I find contentment and satisfaction in those, because I think a lot of men, and we'll get to this in the movie, a lot of men feel like it's hard work to get to those places of connection with the people in their life. And so they don't.
Yeah.
And they think it's okay. Oh, well, it's okay. We'll just kind of hang out, and we won't really talk. We won't, blah, 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 blah. And then, but that's a process too. And if you commit yourself to that process, you don't want to go where that's going to take you. Right. And so
to the bowels of our souls.
And, but if you put the effort in, you find the joy. The joy is on the other side of that effort of showing up and trying, as we've talked about, just showing up and being present in conversation and what God's called you to. You actually get a lot of joy from it. So that's what I mean. That's a long freaking answer, but that's what I mean when I say it was a good week.
A good week is what Charles Stanley would say. He defined success by, did I follow God today?
Right.
And if I did, the results aren't up to us. The results are up to him. But the other part is the blessing. It might be financial. It might be opportunity. It might be all these things. But more often than not, what you use these words, contentment and peace and joy, those are the blessings. And I don't want to say it's not been a good time here, but it's been challenging because one of my best friends has been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
Right. Yeah.
And so where do we go with that? Like, how do you have a good week when that happens? But you see that increased connection. You see that God working. You see God moving in the relationships and in the community and how they responded to him and how our small group of friends is responding. And we are in the middle of football season, as we mentioned with Brian last week, talking about legend. Around here, we have a saying for the Panthers of keep pounding. And it originated with Sam Mills, a linebacker coach here for the Panthers who got cancer. And in his speech to the team, he said, keep pounding. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity again to tell my buddy Jeremy to keep pounding, man. And we're all praying for you.
Yeah.
You teed this up. It's like that question wasn't on our pre-show conversation, but you really teed up this movie kind of perfectly, as God does often. That idea, like you said, yeah, I've had a good week. And when you look at these two guys, these main characters, Kurt Russell playing Reno, the star quarterback who gets hurt in their last game, and Robin Williams playing Jack, who's the wide receiver who dropped the ball on the ultimate play that would have given them a win over a team they've never beaten. They have not had a good 13 years. So it's been 13 years since their senior season. They played, and this movie came out in 86. So it was like, fall of 72 they played. And we see Jack, again, Robin Williams' character. He's a bank manager now, but he's been handed the job by his father-in-law, and he basically lives the misery of you drop the pass. People call him Butterfingers. They don't toss the keys to him. and you see Reno, he's a not even really a mechanic, more of a van painter. There's not a lot of calling for that. In this little small podunk town, they decided it'd be a good idea. Let's replay the game and try to revitalize the town, rejuvenate, reawaken. And so they do that. And, as I like to say, chaos ensues. And this being this sort of movie back in the mid 80s, of course, Jack's going to catch the ball at the end of the game and go off and change everybody's perception of him. But it's how we get there that's part of it. And so what we're going to talk about today is sort of the character sketch of these two men, Reno, and Jack, their different outlook on the past 13 years, and then how what they did was transformative, not just to the community, but to themselves. And I think we see that with us. If we transform ourselves, if we become more wholehearted, we then transform our families, which then transform the community. But we can't start if we're still broken. And that's where we see both Jack and Reno. And we're going to start with Jack. He's the guy who dropped the ball. For 13 years, he's been living with that. That's what he's known for, even though he's the vice president of a bank. Good job, makes money. If I remember correctly, the very first scene we see him, he's sitting in a closet in his office, replaying the dropped catch. 13 years later. And, his doorbell's the high school fight song. This dude has some issues. And as you were talking about before, back in the 80s, for a lot of men, especially, high school was your glory days. That was the best of times, right? It was all that. It didn't get better than that, because what you see now is he's the bank manager. He's got a job. He's got responsibility. He's got wife and a daughter he's not connecting with. Reno's got this sort of failed van shop that is struggling. He's missed his mortgage payments. His marriage is on the rocks. He's got a teenage son. So you see two guys sort of entering their midlife crisis, but in very different aspects. So Jack is looking at the past, replaying this scene over and over and over, which I'm sure nobody listening has ever done.
Right. Well, so another thing I love about this is that these two guys are still friends. Like, I can't imagine that these two guys were friends in high school, but somehow they never explain why these guys are friends now, but these guys are friends. Their wives are friends. And so just to set it up, there's this, it's not really even a rivalry. A rivalry would mean that that somebody that the other team wins sometimes, right?
Right.
But so there's Bakersfield, which I guess was, the bigger city, which I've never heard of Bakersfield, California, and then Taft is the small town, and Taft would always get creamed. But since Reno Hightower was this amazing high school quarterback, they had a halfway decent team, and they almost won. And this guy, Jack, was the reason why this down on their luck town with bad weather and horrible, horrible situations, and they always get beat down, and they didn't get their one chance at glory. They didn't get their one chance. And I kind of wrote down when I was watching it, I said, which is worse, to never have the chance to have a glory moment, or to have the chance and fail? Which is worse?
Well, Shakespeare would say it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. He would have.
But
what does he know?
And I think that's one of the themes that we'll get to as we talk about this, is that he wishes, and he tells Reno, why did you throw me? Why did you throw the ball to me? Obviously he was open, right? That was one reason, and he was on the field. He was a receiver, but he wasn't a natural athlete. He talks about it one time in the bar where he's like, I got this essay, it was a heck of an essay, man. And it was just, he was known for being more intellectual and a goofball, but he said, my one mistake is I tried out for the football team my senior year. And then so all he sees is his mistakes. And like you said, I think a lot of men and people and women, like they can look back and see that. They can see, maybe not in a comedic way, like he just dropped the football. Like in the grand scheme of life, that's really not that big of a deal.
But that's a cliche. People say, oh man, you really dropped the ball on that one.
It's a cliche, right?
When you screw up, when you mess up the presentation, it's like, oh, drop the ball on that one.
Dropping the ball is just they made a whole movie about a cliche. But when you were in high school and you were part of a team, and we were talking about this before we started recording. Like, for a lot of guys, especially guys for those times who were in their 30s and the 80s, your high school time was your glory days. And Bruce Springsteen has a great song about it called
Glory Days.
It's a great song. Because this was a time when you felt like you fit in, you felt like you had a crew, you had friends, you are a part of something bigger than yourself in a very positive way, and especially with sports, kind of gives you this, and the local community would really hype it up, and there's cheerleaders and there's coaches and there's all this sort of things that go around these events. And so you feel like this is your glory days. And then you get beyond that. And what a lot of people don't realize about men, which is part of that really funny video you sent me. What a lot of people don't get about men is when they hit 40, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, men 40 and older in our culture are recording like the highest amount of loneliness ever in the history. Like when they were in high school, and then when they were in college.
It took me a minute to remember what video it was you were referencing. The guy who pretended to be hosting a podcast just to get an excuse to talk to his friends.
It's funny, but it's also very telling about men in their middle age, because we crave connection with other men, but we're almost not encouraged against it, but it's almost made fun of for it. Or, oh, you guys are just going to watch a game, or you guys are just going to do something stupid, or you guys are just going to, whatever. Because we had that when we were younger, and we had a sense of fulfillment because of it. And now we think, well, a good job and a good house and a good car and like all these trappings of American life, if we've achieved them, they should give us satisfaction, and then they don't, because we don't have that connection.
There's nobody cheering you when you change diapers in the middle of the night.
That's right. And so,
mow the lawn.
So because these two men, now, like you said, Reno has a little bit of a different problem, is that he's stuck in the past in a different way. He's stuck in the past as if, like, I had my glory days. Now I can just live out the rest of my life.
They'll pass you by, glory days.
And I'm going to have to listen to that song. But both of these men, their marriages are failing. Jack says, I'm a bad lover. Does she say you're a bad lover? Oh, she knows. And I don't have to tell her. I'm not going to tell her. I'm not going to bring it up. But my point is, they're in this place where their lives aren't really satisfying them. And Reno has settled, but Jack is, something's motivating him. His past, his mistake, his whole reputation is failure, which for men is the worst, right? And so he has this time. So instead of really talking with his wife, it's just, hi, fine, how are you? Okay, get the chips. Like, that's,
yeah.
If you're married, this conversation. We're just talking about what we need to do today. It's just checking in about the necessities of life. But there's no real connection. And in order to get connection, he has to go pay a prostitute just to sit and talk with her. And so that's the first scene that we're going to kind of get to.
This guy that I know, and I'm not minimizing his past, his life, his trauma, because he's been through a lot.
Right.
But he's basically said his wife is sort of tired of hearing it. Tired of hearing, and Jack's wife, Ellie, is the same way. She's tired of hearing it. So he goes to the trailer park massage person. But then she actually suggests something to him. Instead of just sitting there moaning about it like he has for the last 13 years, do something about it.
I know every county line in the San Joaquin Valley. I came here a few months back for a little variety. All I hear about is some tie game played 13 years ago I can barely remember.
Oh, come on, Darla. You were a gridiron princess. Remember the homecoming queen? Come on. You remember, Reno remembers, the whole goddamn town remembers.
Okay, I remember.
And?
And you should have caught the damn ball.
I knew it!
Can't you make a comeback?
From what? I'm not a has-been. I'm a never was. I aspire to be a has-been.
Oh, that's it, Jack. I am not listening to this crapola, and it is crapola every week. If you've got unfinished business, finish it.
Oh.
Play the game again.
What do you mean, just play the game again? You can't play the game again.
Why not?
Because you can't rewrite history.
Why not?
It's an unnatural act.
Jack, there is no such thing as an unnatural act. I should know. Tell me one good reason that you can't play that game again. Just
all right, tell you.
Okay.
All right, you can't because... Because...
One reason, Jack. Just one.
I know unnatural acts.
Hey, you can't tell me. we get stuck, and man, I've told people this, and I act on it myself because I've learned God can't move a parked car. In other words, you got to start moving, and you move towards something constructive and positive. And when you do that, stuff starts happening, and that's what happens in this movie. Is that he gets the idea from this woman, which later on, I love how he takes credit for the idea. I had this great idea. But
well, that's because then he'd have to admit he went to see Darla.
We had to, in the loaner car. And so when we feel stuck, it's like you got to get moving on something. And you got to start shaking it up. And it doesn't have to be replay a whole football game, maybe, but instead of wallowing in it, one of my favorite scriptures, and is it Moses or Joshua, in the book of Joshua, when they go and one of the people had taken something from Jericho that they weren't supposed to. And they went to the next town or the next city and they lost the battle. Joshua is on his face before God, and God says, "Get up. There's sin in the camp. Go take care of it." In other words, stop whining to me about it. I'm telling you what the problem is. It's not constructive to just sit here and cry about it. Like let's go and do something about it. And so he's given a purpose. So now instead of just wallowing in this place, now he has purpose. See, so he says, I aspire to be a has-been. Reno is the has-been. Reno is he actually wishes he was Reno. Everybody remembers him as this great person. So it's total opposite ends of the spectrum. Now that he's motivated, he's excited, and he's trying to share this purpose that he has now. I could have a second chance. There's hope. And he keeps getting shot down. And by the way, here's another little thing. I thought this was interesting. He tells Darla, the prostitute lady, he's like, "I'm a bad lover." And she's like, "How do you know?" He was like, "Oh, women know." But then when he comes home and he gets passionate with his wife about this, and you see the look on her face, like, ooh, like that's exciting. But then she still tries to convince him not to, even though she kind of was attracted to this guy who has passion, who's going, and I just think that's normal. When we feel like, man, I need to break out of this, you're going to get resistance. You're going to get people who don't understand. You're going to get people who are going to say, man, what's the problem? But his marriage is failing. And Reno's marriage is failing. Like they need to move forward.
So, sort of the theme of this is that living a broken life is easier than fixing it.
Yeah.
What you were just saying is he's got a new vision. He's passionate about it. He's like, I can fix what's wrong with me, basically. And you see so many guys who can't get past that of, well, I failed in my first marriage, so I'm never getting married again. or I screwed up my kids. So instead of trying, I'll just sort of sit back and let bygones be bygones, or, I'm just an addict. And I'm not saying that addiction isn't a thing, but when we say that this is all we ever can be, one, we're limiting what God can do and the freedom that he can provide.
Thank you.
But we spend so much time focusing on the past. If I can just figure out, and I think therapy is a great idea, but even for me, it's like, it doesn't really matter where this dysfunction came from. What matters is, what are you going to do with it now? It's like we can uncover every stone in the past to figure out, oh, this is why this happened and you're insecure. This is why this happened and you're lonely. This is why this happened and you go to success, where you go to all these things for validation, for purpose, for identity. And that's great. Okay, now I know but then we just are like Jack, replaying it constantly. Well, if this hadn't happened, I'd be better off. If this hadn't happened, I wouldn't be so jacked up. If this hadn't happened, people would like me better. Instead of saying, yes, that happened, what am I going to do about it now? We get stuck in, yes, this happened and woe is me and I'm so broken, I'm so messed up. And we don't go do something. And sometimes it is sort of a replay of what happened in the past. I've had that happen with jobs where I get sort of a second opportunity, a second chance at a job, get to sort of do it the right way. Sometimes life feels like a video game where, if we fail the boss level, we're going to have to try it again. And we see that with Jack. And like you were saying with Reno, his is different because he is checked out. He hurt his knee on that play. He remembers, again, the glory days thing of this is the best it ever was. And I blew out my knee and now I'm just trying to make life work. It's easier to be, his wife's Volkswagen Bug is busted. He is a mechanic. He could fix it. But he even says at one point, if I fix it, I'm afraid she'll leave me. So instead of trying to fix himself, he just doesn't fix the car. And that's what I love about the idea that Jack has when he goes to Reno. Because at this point, both their wives have kicked them out. Gigi is leaving Reno because she wants to be a singer. Ellie's kicked Jack out because he picked the game over sex with her. What am I'm just saying, he's not that bright. We actually see that, I think we experience it. If we're sort of caught up with something, if we're in our own heads like Jack is at that moment, we can't pursue our wives romantically, sexually. Like, we have to fix ourselves before we can pursue them, pursue their hearts and sort of create that passion, because we feel broken. We feel, like he says, I'm a bad lover. But what he says to what Jack says to Reno is, I know how you can get her back. And the game is the carrot. But what is it? It's remembering who you were, that fire, that passion, that sort of love of life, but also even just getting in shape, caring about yourself. Because both these guys had given up on who they were.
Yep.
And so I'm going to play this clip. This was after Jack said, I know how you can get her back. So they go to the football field and Jack is pitching Reno, and he starts with, nobody did a better football pose for a picture than you did.
Pose for me.
What?
Nobody could pose for football pictures like you could.
Oh, my God.
Just give me that one. Give me that one where you're stiff-arming the tackler and your right arm is cocked for the quick release.
Jack, you can't play that game again.
You know what Shooty'd say to that?
The words of Lucifer.
Are you horny to win? Come on, you commie pissant. Let's play some football. Remember? You were wearing those home whites. Gigi loved you in the home whites. And you had on those goddamn white shoes. You were the only quarterback in the history of Kern County to have white shoes.
True.
And then we'd run down that long tunnel. All of a sudden, the photographers, Mr. Hightower, boom, 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 boom. And the crowd going, They're calling your number now. Number 12, Reno Heiser! Give me the pose. Yes! Don't forget the teeth. The teeth! Yes! Oh, this means you'll play.
Oh, we get killed, Jack. You can't remake history without an offensive line.
We'll get an offensive line.
I don't want to throw the football anymore.
I can't believe that,
I
Reno.
don't want to throw a beer can into a trash bin anymore, because if I miss, some jerk's going to say, "Hey, Reen, what's the matter? Losing the old touch, huh?" I'm not a quarterback anymore. I'm a van specialist, and I like it. I'm good at it. I don't want to play.
Full disclosure, I know IMDb gives us like a 5 out of 10, and Rotten Tomatoes gives it 31%.
31.
This was like a huge movie for my family. We had this on VHS, and we watched this all the time. But here's part of the thing. So number one, you get resistance, and part of the resistance is you don't have what it takes to do this. They may not say it that way. They may not say those words, but you will just get killed. So his wife, to go back to that scene with his wife, she actually makes him choose. She says, Jack's wife makes him choose. You either have me or the game. And he's like, don't make me choose. And she's making him choose because she thinks she's saving him embarrassment. She thinks that she's saving him from another. He didn't handle the first failure very well. So why would we set him up for another one? And so you have people in your life that they think they're doing you a favor sometimes by saying, this isn't for you. You're not really cut out for this. But here's the thing. No one has all that they need when they start. No one does. No one has all that they need when they start. If you waited to have all that you needed before you start, you would never start. Never. Nobody would. You just got to start and see what happens. Both Jack and Reno were in story, whichever, the regular story, the everybody else's story. And Jack is trying to move not just himself. His vision is bigger than himself. His vision is, I'm not the only one who's stuck in the past. I'm not the only one who's stuck it like this. The whole town is stuck like this. And my motivation is, yes, for me, but my motivation is also to get everyone out of lethargy and the bowels of hell. And he keeps saying bowels of hell. But that's where they are, and they don't know it. And he's trying to wake everybody up. And Reno, after this conversation, by the way, so Jack has to manipulate Reno along the way. And he manipulates him because he's the bank guy and Reno's behind on the mortgage. So he manipulates him. And Reno goes to the town leader guys in the lodge. And he says, and he asks an honest question at the bar. He says, do you think Taft is lethargic? And the guy at the lodge goes, absolutely. That's what I love about it. Like, we're just the same thing every day. No one's moved in. No one's moved out. Like, this is the same thing every day.
Well, and there are some churches like that, aren't there?
Right. But what happens with lethargy? What happens with sitting still? Like, it starts to get weird. It's death, right? That's death. So the town votes him down, by the way. So the town votes him down because they're like, this is full of crap. This is just, BS. But he's right. The town does need this. He needs this. Reno can get her back if he'll step up again. He's right about all of this. And as dark as it gets, he proves that he's right, that if we just get moving, something good's going to happen. And I love that.
Because we talk a lot about it in these movies, who's the transformed person. I don't really think Jack transforms much. He does a little bit, but it's not the massive transformation. The transformation we really see is in Reno and the town. and Jack is the catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
He puts on the tiger suit to make it look like Bakersfield came in and trashed their town and trashed their high school and all this stuff to rile everybody up. He's the one moving, manipulating people to get the game to happen. Even to the point where at halftime, when they're losing big, he pisses off Reno by saying, "I was the tiger who threw paint on your wife." But it flipped the switch for Reno so that he became the person, because they run, they start getting in shape, they're doing aerobics. They to the point their wives are like, "Man, they're looking good." Well, we didn't need a football game to care about how we looked and to be fit and to be healthy. The town, it's like, it reminded me of the scene in Cars where, like, oh, the road looks so nice, but our shops look like crap. The theater reopens, all these places they paint. The town gets in shape, basically. And you feel that rejuvenation of the community. And again, here's these guys suffering in isolation, but they're moving together with camaraderie, with community. And that's what we see in our own lives is it's really easy to suffer playing replays in our head, feeling like down and out, worried about what the audience will say. He's like, I don't want to throw something away because if I miss the trash can, they're going to do me like they're doing you, Butterfingers.
Right.
Iron hands. And he's afraid of that. But once they sort of engage in it, once they start pursuing, once they become really, this is a question we ask at our men's retreat, which is actually coming up here like next week. Spots still open at carolinasoutpost.com. But one of the questions when we talk about our pursuit of the woman's heart and how that's different and how to do that and sort of become aware of the ways we've damaged the hearts of the women in our lives. And afterwards we have a question. Describe the man your wife married. Describe the man you are today. What does that gap look like? And with both of those guys, you see that gap. Mm-hmm. And they slowly, through the course of training and all this other stuff, they become more whole, they become healed, but they become, in their strength. Even the father-in-law becomes proud of him for catching the ball, for not dropping it. He's like, he's no clown. That's my son-in-law.
So Jack does have an arc. He does have a transformation, which is at the end of the movie, he does pursue her and he goes into the women's bathroom and he bears his soul to her. So he does pursue her. And
what does he start with? I was wrong.
You
gave me the choice.
I should have chosen you. I should have chosen you when you gave me the choice. I was wrong. But here's why he gets to that point. So because we don't want to skip over this, I wrote down, the enemy organizes faster than we do. Okay. So what happens in the movie is everyone tells him no. His wife has kicked him out. Reno is like, we're just going to get, he has to manipulate Reno. The town lodge, Auga guys are like, no, we're not going to do this. And so he gets a phone call from his father-in-law, who's the owner of the bank, who's Bakersfield, USA dude. And he has gotten the team together. So while Jack is hearing no, the enemy's ready. The other team is lined up, ready to go. And so that creates a little desperation in Jack. But my point is that these are things, this is the resistance that we're gonna deal with. When the devil wants us in the lethargy. The last thing the enemy wants is for you to get up and start moving. That's the last thing he wants, because if he can't get you into hell, he wants to steal your purpose. He wants to steal what God has for you to do.
And it's interesting that you say that, Britt, because just this weekend, I told you before, I was like, Sunday I woke up, I'm like feeling tired all the time. It's not from lack of sleep. I'm sleeping fine. I'm not struggling any of that. But I'm sitting on the front porch. My back hurts. My hips hurt. You know, we're doing the old man thing, comparing ailments and stuff. But it's like, I should walk. Like my legs feel, you know, like if you haven't walked in a while or done activity, your legs are like, you need to move. And I'm just like, it's just so hot. I just don't want to. What's the point? Like getting frustrated. I'm trying to lose weight to get under 200 pounds. And I've been stuck in this like 207 to 212 range for months. I was like, why am I bothering? Why am I trying? This is stupid. I'm failing, obviously. Why am I doing this? You know, our pastor a few weeks ago did a sermon from, I think it's the John 22, where after Jesus' resurrection, the disciples are out, they're throwing their nets and they fished all night. And Jesus is there on the shore. He's like, oh, friends, have you caught anything? Like he doesn't know.
Nope.
And that's what I told my wife. I was like, I'm just really tired of throwing down empty nets, of pulling in empty nets. And it's really like, I mean, this is a comedy, caricatured, stereotype, you know, blown out, overacted, as you could tell from the clips we've played so far.
This is early Robin Williams, okay, where everything had to be on 11.
But that's what it feels like. You know, when you talked about the resistance,
Yep.
it's like, why? The idea resistance is futile. Why are you trying to do this? You're never going to succeed. You're never going to move in this direction. You're going to be tired. You're going to be hopeless. You know, my son, we watched the soccer games this weekend and he's just on his phone. And I'm like, this is where I tried to connect, and I'm trying to connect. I'm trying to do the right thing and engage with him and have a relationship. And it just feels empty. We can paint the enemy and our opposition like it's a cartoon, like it's fake, like it doesn't exist, or it's some extreme example. But when it's, you're arguing with your wife and instead of apologizing, you kind of stick to your guns, or you just go off and watch a movie or porn. Like I know guys that have done that. And you could do that with your kids. Well, what's the point? I'm not going to try, because every time I try, he shuts me down and whatever. I'll think about it. Good. You know, the one word answers. We both have teenage boys. We are both experiencing this. And the temptation is to give up. The temptation is to quit trying because we're just like, what? Why bother? I'm just going to fail again. I'm just going to look stupid again. I'm just going to drop the ball again.
And in that story that you were talking about with Jesus, what does he say next? Cast the nets one more time. That's the last thing you want to do. We have been working all night when it was supposed to work. We were doing it when it was supposed to work. We're professional fishermen. Jesus, as I was talking about at the beginning of the podcast, I have learned that the process will work. But man, there are a lot of days when it feels like the process isn't working. and it's like, but his mercies are new every morning. His mercies are, I have to take up my cross every day. I have to receive his mercies every day. Every day I get Jesus going, cast the net one more time. But I haven't caught anything in weeks. Just cast it one more time. Are you serious? Like I have to cast the net another time.
Well, and one last thing on that story, the pastor, you know, it was almost like he's done a series on it. So he said, you know, they're about 100 yards from shore, ready to give up. So they're 100 yards from, you know, it takes 100 yards of work to get in.
Yeah.
The boat was 8 feet wide. They're closer to their success. They're closer to the filling up the nets
Mm.
than they are to giving up.
Mm.
And that's what we see in this is like Jack could have given up. It would have been easier. And it wouldn't change he's already sort of the pariah. So nobody cares. Oh, Butterfingers, Flake. Oh, you canceled on us, scared of us. All those things are true. But instead, because living a broken life is easier than fixing it. But at some point, a broken life becomes unlivable. And we all go through that rock bottom.
Yeah. You don't want where that broken life's going.
No.
I mean, you just don't want that. So, I mean, think about the amount of courage that it took for Jack to not agree with everyone's assessment of him. He felt it. I mean, he overacted, felt it in that, first scene we played. He's screaming, such early Robin Williams. And yet he kept fighting. That's not who I am. I can be something different. I don't have to be that. I don't have to be that person. And man, I'm just telling you. So one of my favorite things that starts to happen is, as you said, the town gets revitalized, and Reno pursues her because she's moved out. Reno's wife, Gigi, has asked for a divorce. By the way, Kirk Cameron's in this, and his
yes,
and his little sister from
Growing Pains,
Tracy something, right?
Yeah, I can't remember her last name.
So the two of the kids from Growing Pains are in this thing. But it's before Growing Pains, obviously. She has moved out into the motel, and she's asked for a divorce, and she's waiting to get the car fixed. She's just waiting to get out. She's like, I'm stuck here. Nothing's going to move forward. And she even says at one point, to me, it's good writing in the sense of it's the last thing you want your wife to hear is your father has lost his drive. It's the last thing you want your wife to say. He's lost his drive. He's lost that thing that made me love him, which was, like she says at the end, God, I love watching you play. But he had lost that. And so, but he goes to her with flowers and puts himself out there again. And he sings,
"Why do birds?" Just like Parenthood.
They were around the same time. I think this one was first. I think this movie was first, but yes. And you can tell her heart's softening towards him again. And Ellie's like, no, we got to get out of here.
Because she starts singing along, and Ellie's like,
we're just going to give in. But it looks like they're going to fail again, because even though they've revitalized the town and they've had a big dance and all of this stuff, and it seems like it's all going to work, or they're about to have the big dance. They're almost to the big dance. Reno says, have you seen the enemy? Have you seen the guys who are actually going to play? And Jack realizes what a huge, colossal mistake he's made is that he thinks everyone else is right. But everyone else now thinks that Jack is right, because his wife says he's done it. He's changed everything. He's changed the town. The town has life again. And he's actually done what he said he was going to do. And she realizes that even if they don't win the game, it was all worth it. And that to me is an important lesson, because we said this in the beginning, whatever you said from Charles Stanley, like, my job is to get up and cast the nets again. It's God's job to fill the nets. But he can't fill nets I don't cast.
Yeah.
He can't. He not only won't, but he just can't. He can't fill a net I don't cast. And so they only have an opportunity for redemption because he got them to this point. And even though he was resigned, but he wasn't completely resigned, because he had to try to piss off Reno so he could make him a jerk again. And then I love what was what the guys Jackson or whoever at halftime goes,
Right.
who woke you up? And that is a good week to me. I feel like I was awake this week. I feel like maybe that's the simplest way to say it. I feel like I was awake this week. I was awake to God. I was awake to my purpose. I was awake to my wife. I was awake to my kids. I was awake to what God had in front of me. I cast my nets again, and maybe I failed, but I'm telling you, he can't fill a net you don't cast. And it's one of those things where they would not have had the cheesy ending if he hadn't pushed and gone against the resistance. And even if they had lost, his wife realized this was worth it. This was worth it, to have this man back, to have someone to feel the connection to all of the things that they felt. It was worth it.
Well, you realize your life isn't defined by that. And you realize that the best days are ahead. I mean, I remember trying to teach my kids as they're going into high school, this is going to be great. It's not the best. If it's the best, you're screwing up somewhere. Even college are great memories. But if I look back at college and be like, man, I wish I was back there, then something's missing from our life today. So I love that what you said is, who woke you up? And so my challenge for everybody listening is, where do you need to wake up? Where have you been satisfied living a broken life, sort of getting by? Where do you need to throw more nets? Where do you like, oh no, I am not responsible for the results. I do what God's called me to do. And that's my measure of a good day. Because if we do that, if we release and that's how Paul could say, I know what it's like to be full. I know what it's like to be hungry. I've been naked. I've been clothed. I've been, the spectrum. He's survived the spectrum. And I have learned to be content, whatever my situation is. And that's how you do all things through Christ. It's not lifting a new personal record in the gym. It's being content when you get horrible, terrible news. I get my buddy with cancer, we were talking, and he's like, this is where you put your faith, where your faith meets the road. and he's been a missionary and all this stuff. It's like, people can lose their faith. People get angry. People feel it's unfair. How can this happen? How can God let this happen? And he laughed. He's like, this would be a really dumb time to leave my faith. Like, facing my own death, I feel like I should double down here just to make sure. And that's how you can live even though you're struggling, even though you get terrible news externally. You might lose your job. You might lose your kids. The terrible stuff is going to happen. But we're still called to throw our nets. And hopefully this will turn us, those bad news, those cataclysmic reports that we get, don't cause us to hide in our office closets watching replays of what we could have done, what we should have done. This wouldn't have happened if I had done this differently, because that's going to get us nowhere. But instead, it should wake us up to connect with those who matter the most.
Yes.
And turn us to God to say, God,
sure.
I feel like I lost. I mean, that's what the Psalms are full of, those sorts of things, is, where are you? I'm broken. I'm this. Where are you? The nations are laughing at you, God. I'm waiting for you to show up. And we just have to trust that he will.
As we're closing here, I'm reminded of when my wife and I came back from Korea. So I graduate from college. My wife and I have jobs as teachers in public school in our county, and God calls us to another country. I'm not saying this is what everyone has to do. I'm just saying this is what happened. And so my wife and I go to another country and have an amazing 4 years. And we come back from Korea. God calls us to America again. And when we come back, some friends of ours hear that we're in town. Some friends of mine from high school hear that I'm back in town. And these are guys I was very close to in high school. And they're like, hey, we're getting together at the bar. Come and have a beer with us. And I'm like, I'm there. I haven't seen these guys in forever. Sounds great. And I have just gotten back from 4 years of mission work. And we don't have time to tell all the stories. And so when I sit down, and I remember the first time I sat down with these guys, and they're like, you remember this teacher in 11th grade? Remember when we did this? Remember?
Glory days.
They only talked about stuff that we had done together. I'm like, I haven't seen you guys in 15 years. Well, it had been like 5 or 6 years at that point. But I hadn't seen you guys in forever. Last time I saw everybody was at the 10-year high school reunion. So I'm back from Korea. I've seen people get healed. I've seen money show up in my bank account. I have stories of what happened yesterday. And these guys are, and I don't have anything against reminiscing to some degree, but that was all we did for 2 hours. You remember when this happened? Remember? And then the next time we got together, oh, remember when this happened? Remember when this happened when we were in I remember this teacher and all, here's what I'm like.
I just don't care.
And I had this feeling like, why are we talking about, and they were still upset about stuff that happened. Oh, remember when this happened?
She put me in detention.
This girl cheated on me and I hated her. And I was like, dude, whoa. And so I guess my challenge is to people, it doesn't have to mean you go to Korea. It doesn't have to be something extremely, radical. But what are you doing in your life right now that excites you, that you want to talk about right now? What are you doing? I don't know. It can be anything. But start somewhere. Start with, if you don't have that thing, then find a thing that is. And it may, I don't know what it could be. It could be anything. But get involved in something that you want to talk about with other people, that you are excited enough that when you sit down and have lunch with somebody and they say, what's going on? And you say, well, let me tell you about this that I've been doing.
Where do I begin?
Where do I start? And it could be just something, whatever, but that it's just something you're excited about that breaks you out of the routine and puts you on a different process. And here's the sad part is I would come home from Korea and talk about all these amazing things that happened. And my friends would look at me and go, we've just been doing the same thing every day. We can't compete with this. and I was like, but you could,
right?
Like the same spirit is there.
Give me one reason.
Yeah.
One reason.
And so I just want to encourage everybody, keep casting the nets, get involved in something that excites you, get involved in something. And I think Paul says that makes you come alive, because that's what people need. That's what our world needs, is Christians coming alive in something that excites them. That's the kind of thing that gives people hope. And you can, and yes, you'll get resistance, and there's an enemy that'll try to get you to stop. And there'll be people and the enemy and voices who are going to try to remind you of some worldly identity to try to keep you down. All that stuff's going to happen. And you're going to have to say, no, that's not me anymore. You're going to have to stand up. And that is going to give you the kind of character that God says, okay, now I can give this to him. That's what happens. Now he can catch the ball. Now that he's revealed the truth, now that he's revealed who he really is, now that he's admitted he was wrong to his wife, now that he's gone through all of this, he can be the guy who caught the ball. That's who you can be. Now God opens the doors for things you didn't even know was going to be there. But it's not going to happen if you just settle. And that doesn't mean, again, please hear me. I'm not saying quit your job and move to Omaha. I'm just saying find something that excites you.
What's in Omaha? Sorry, just Omaha just was funny. So this has been Paul McDonald and Britt Mooney talking about best o' times. Go check it out. It's football time. Go watch some classic football movie. And we hope you guys enjoyed it, and we hope you join us next time here on the Men at the Movies podcast.
Something inside has been awakened. I can no longer be who I was before. But if I am no longer who I was, who am I to be?